We do, okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Calling this meeting to order, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Robert, if you would please lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Put your hand over your heart. After me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Director Quady.
Here.
Director McMillan.
Here.
Director Papella is absent. Director Robert.
Here.
Director Avila.
Here. Hey, thank you, Kara. And up next, we have public comments. This portion of the agenda may be utilized by any member of the public to address the board of directors on any matter within the jurisdiction of the board that does not appear on the agenda and on matters that are on the agenda but are not designated as action items. Depending on the subject matters, the board of directors may be unable to respond at this time or until a specific topic is placed on the agenda at a future Calleguas board meeting. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, please limit remarks to 3 minutes. If any member of the public would like to say anything, please raise your hand. Okay, we have no raised hands. Thank you, everyone. Do we have any items to be added to the agenda?
No.
Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda, and is there any recommended requested changes? Okay, up next we have presentations. Up first is item A, introductions of the 2026 intern cohort, Hayden Wren, Helena Nezovic, and Resources of External Affairs, and Angela Rosas.
Yes, Jennifer Vasquez, our Principal Water Resources Specialist, will be introducing our 3 intern cohort, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the 3 interns that just joined us a few weeks ago. I did want to highlight, of course, this is in our bigger strategy of workforce development that we've talked about a few times through different presentations. The Water Career video series, for example, that I came forward with a few months ago or a while back ago. You know, as you know, internships play an important role in developing the future of water professionals. And we really wanted to give this opportunity to have students and graduates participate at Calleguas and really engage themselves with meaningful work that benefits both on their end and our end. A win-win situation is always what we look for. And so on that note, I also wanted to introduce each of them individually, give them an opportunity to come up and share. I did prompt a question for them to share. One item that they are looking forward to learning or have done in the short 3 weeks that they have been with us. So what I'll do is I'll introduce each of them individually, have them come up, just really have them share really quickly, introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to the next. So that's the structure. So I'll go ahead and start with Helena Knasevich. Helena is currently studying environmental science at Santa Monica Community College and will be supporting the Water Resource and External Affairs Department. So I'll go ahead and invite her to introduce herself and share a little bit more about what she's excited to work on.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Helena Knasevich. As Jen just said, I'm a water resource intern. First, I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to work here alongside you. It's been a great experience so far, and I'm excited for the next few months. Right now, just what I've been working on primarily is I'm editing the turf replacement interviews that the last intern took. And my goal with that is kind of just to come up with like a short educational video to allow the public to maybe learn more about rebates and get interested in themselves.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. The next intern for introduction is Hayden Wren. Hayden is a recent graduate from UC Santa Barbara, with a bachelor's degree in environmental studies. He will be working primarily in the regulatory compliance division of O&M, learning about water quality and regulations and assisting other O&M divisions as needed. So again, I'll have him share a little bit more about what he's excited to work on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hayden Wren, and so I'm the water quality intern. So my short time, thank you guys for this opportunity, by the way. So far, I've kind of been in the field helping take samples and stuff like that. I've been in the lab as well, helping with some water quality stuff, testing, learning how to use the equipment and stuff like that. I've also been up at the lake as well, doing samples and testing. And then I'm currently working on a well field like timeline project where I'm pretty much looking through all of our data and creating a document of what's happened to our well fields. So yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. And next up, we have Angela Rosas. Angela is pursuing a bachelor's degree in business administration at CalU and will be working closely with human resources and risk management to provide administrative support on a variety of projects during the internship. And so she'll share a little bit more about her role and position. Thank you.
Angela, thank you for the opportunity. So as Jennifer mentioned, I have been working on a few projects. So far, we've been updating the emergency response plans and the binders that we have around the site. And recently I started working on the salary schedule. So that's been really interesting. I've been getting familiar with some numbers and I'm excited to see more and learn more about the progress here at Calleguas as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all for me. They did an amazing job, I think, highlighting the work that they've achieved so far in the 3 weeks. I want to say close to 3 weeks. So we're very proud of them and hopeful for the next few months to have them work with us and grow this and also grow as an intern and cohort, which I think is a great element of this added benefit to having 3 come in at the same time. So thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited to have you all here and I wish you the best and I hope you guys enjoy your time here and bring something to the district and also take a lot of lessons learned. So give
Sounds like a good assignment match.
yeah. But any board member like to say anything?
No, I think it's an important program and I'm glad to see some new faces and learning new things and bringing some people to the district.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, up next we have the
So we have some late breaking news that our speaker on item 6D is delayed. So if I could propose that we skip over reports and then circle back to consent?
agreed. We don't have an action.
We don't have an action item.
Okay, moving on to reports, starting with the general managers and staff reports, monthly status report. First, we have item 4.
Yes. Henry Gromlich, our executive strategist, will be handling this item. Soon as the presentation comes through. There's a little, yeah, there we go. A little bit of a lag.
Okay, and one more. There it is. Groundbreaking. So it took me longer to come up with this title than I thought. I kept trying to think of what was snappy that included groundbreaking because I didn't see any way around using that, but I wanted to really talk about what the significance was. And thank you, directors, and for your attendance, and Director McMillan for your remarks. This was groundbreaking in more than just the construction commencement sort of way. What this project represents is really a new model for Metropolitan. They have developed an infrastructure that works well. They relied upon state water project flows to flow by gravity, which is the most efficient way to move water into their system. And it was in 2022 that they understood the limitations of that system to provide an equal level of reliability to all their member agencies. And Calleguas was one of the member agencies that suffered from that inflexible approach. So what that resulted in was the Met Board had a call for action and adopted a resolution to address that through a collection portfolio of capital projects. This is an important one for the West Branch agencies, which include Calleguas, Las Virgenes, and the city of Los Angeles, Las Virgenes, and Calleguas. Right. So the other thing that it did is it really has ushered in a whole new set of evaluations at Metropolitan on how they can more flexibly move water around their system. So we were kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, for them to start to adjust to a new way of of operating their system and the infrastructure improvements that were necessary for that. So not only is it going to allow them to reverse flows on the Sepulveda feeder after the second pump station is built. We were at the Venice site. There's going to be another one on the near the 405 on the Sepulveda next to the Reagan Library. It's Sepulveda Path.
Next to the Getty Center, not the Reagan Library.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to put one here, that'd be great.
No. You're correct. And near the Getty, you'll see that kind of widening of the road next to the freeway there. And that's the spot it's going to be in. So that is where the second part of this project will be. But most importantly, from my perspective, is it gave us the opportunity to find common ground with Las Virgenes and the city of Los Angeles. Oftentimes, we're at cross purposes when member agencies are pursuing their own self-interest. But in this case, we had three agencies that had a common purpose and were able to work together to come to this day where we could stand together and celebrate this groundbreaking. So it truly was a groundbreaking, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Henry. No, it's just it's an incredible project and to be part of it. Is anything from the board?
Respond to say moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you.
Groundbreaking. Thank you, Henry. Okay, up next, we have item 18.
Yes, Fernando Baez, our manager of engineering, will be handling this.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Happy to report strategic engagement resulted in 7-figure earmark. So it didn't take me very long to come up with that headline because somebody else did. So no credit to me for that. Happy to say that Congresswoman Julia Brownley requested funding for 15 community projects, earmarks as they've been known. And this included the Lake Bar Pump Station, including a funding request of just over $1 million. Late last month, President signed Appropriations Bill HR 6938 into law. That was on January 23rd, which included 8 of those 15 projects. Again, Lake Bar Pump Station being one of those. This funding was accomplished by long-term investment in relationships via Aqua DC. So several of members of this board attended that convention, and of course, local engagement with our local office representatives. So kudos to everyone involved. That included Charlotte, who's not here, her team, Christine, and everyone who was reaching out and making this happen. So next steps, we will be executing an agreement with the US EPA in the near future. And we're also looking to schedule a check presentation ceremony. So more news to come on that front. Happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you, Fernando. Any questions from Fernando on this incredible earmark?
Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando.
Fantastic. I know it was kind of in limbo there for a bit, so it's nice to see it came through.
It did. Well, we applied the previous year and no earmarks were awarded funding.
Yeah.
This one did get in and we're already entering the process for the next fiscal year. So we'll be discussing our pursuits on that as well.
All right. Jennifer, back for number 53.
I'm back for 53. And I came up with this pretty quick. Quick action, community impact. And I think it sums up really well what the action was. Calleguas provided regional leadership by facilitating Department of Water Resource grant funding to local water utilities, serving disadvantaged communities that included Nyland Acres and Garden Acres. This was an item that came forward on January 24th. And was approved by the board. And so payment was actually processed rather quickly after that board action. One thing that was noted during that discussion for the board item is that neither of them have a large amount of cash at hand for these type of incisive projects. And so with the reimbursement process that DWR, the process that it has to take for DWR grant funding, that really provided a challenge for these agencies. So getting payment to a contractor is really important, especially when larger dollar amounts are going out. And so waiting months for payment is not ideal. So the impact that Calleguas, of course, had by having this quick action, it led to my title of this, Quick Action Community Impact, because it really is making a community impact to the type of projects. And there's two of them being highlighted on this slide. You see Nyland Acres on top and Garden Acres down at the bottom of the construction elements that they have integrated within their grant application. So I just wanted to highlight that and also say that the coordination with Calleguas staff was amazing, obviously from board memo to internal processing of the payment. I'm impressed and I'm always so thankful for the team that we have that can get this moving really quickly and creating that impact that we want to see. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Questions or comments from the board?
I think this, like I said last time, I think it's a great example of something that we can facilitate with minimal impact to us, but huge impact to, Nyland and Garland and Garden Acres. So.
Nyland in particular was very appreciative. Not that Garden Acres wasn't, they just didn't have as much money outstanding. Nyland had $100,000 outstanding that they owed their contractor and could not pay. And DWR approved the invoice just a couple of days after the board action, and we got the money out the following week.
Well, those groups just don't have the bandwidth to front that money and then wait that long. So, I think it's a great partnership.
I love when the MKs can assist like that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have 58 and 59. Strategic preparations for reliable service.
Good afternoon. How is everybody? This is my little catchphrase, strategic preparation for reliable service. So Metropolitan this year had 3 different shutdowns. One in December, one in January, and the one in February. And they were very unique because the one in December was a complete shutdown with no flow. And the one in January was difficult because it had intermittent flows where we would get some water and then they would be off for 12 to 14 hours. And then the next one that's proposed, it's going to be in February and we will have reduced flow. But with that, if we didn't have the investment of the Lake Bard water filtration plant and the Las Postas ASR well field, we would not have been able to supply water to the degree that our purveyors expect, and also make sure that we have that water quality because each facility has the ability to disinfect. Staff did a phenomenal job of keeping everything running. We didn't receive one call. Nobody was out of water. Nobody got a glitch. So they're not all in here. Really, hats off to our team and what they're able to do, but also to our board and being able to commit to developing these infrastructures and making sure that we have these reliable facilities from our well field to our backup generators. So thank you all. It makes my job easier.
Yeah, the backup generators are not just a random remark. We're currently running on backup power.
We are.
Thank you, Omar. Yeah, pretty incredible. And keep it up. Keep doing that kind of project and keep making this area resilient.
What's amazing is we go through all these events where we use backup generators or pumps, the filtration system, and nobody notices. You're doing your job, nobody notices. And it's always the same report. We did this, didn't get a call. We did this, nobody knew. And that's amazing from a execution perspective. So
thank you.
Okay, up next we have 81, cybersecurity for water, because every drop counts.
Making Wes talk about himself.
Right? It's pretty brutal. I did not spend that much time on this catchphrase because I had Copilot give it to me. So
I couldn't tell, you could have fooled me.
I'll be perfectly honest with that one. Metropolitan was gracious enough to host the cybersecurity summit once again at their headquarters. One of the things that was different this year, and I was glad to see, was that they allowed us to share the invite to all of our purveyors. So all of our purveyors got the invite. We did have a few that had showed up. City of Camarillo was there, and LV was there. Not direct our purveyor, but so there were definitely some local representation there, which was great to see. People are getting to learn a little bit more about cybersecurity they may not have been aware of before. I participated on a panel for governance and basics. The premise on me being on the panel is that we just, implemented our cybersecurity policy and how the process we went through that. to be able to share it out with other agencies that are struggling to come up with the same policies and have that implemented in their agencies. So that was a great panel to be on. They did some breakout sessions focused. One was on incident response. Steve went with me to the conference, so he hit the incident response section to get a little bit more information on how we can work on putting together our incident response plan, which is one of our next big landmarks that we need to work through. And then I hit the OT, the operational technology group, where everybody was sharing how they're trying to protect infrastructure at remote locations and making sure that the hackers are staying out of all of the PLCs and everything out there too. So there's great information. CISA was supposed to be a topic speaker. They usually do a big sales pitch on all of their free offerings, plus all of their paid offerings that they have from the government agency. And they conveniently did not show up as a speaker this time, which was a little interesting. But they did have Calleguas, one of the main guys from the CalSIC from up north came in. And he actually went ahead and did like an impromptu discussion and discussed a lot of the resources that they are providing, which are all free resources to agencies. And everybody was very happy to be able to get that information and learn about that too. So it was a great sharing experience with all of the agencies there for a good cost in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's a very important. Thank you, Wes. Do you have questions for us from the board?
Yeah, did CISA provide any material as well, even though they didn't show?
There's some stuff that Matt had put together previous in the packet ahead of time. So they had the bios from all the speakers that were coming for in one packet, and the other packet, they had a lot of the vulnerabilities and stuff that are coming up, and then all of the CISA and Calleguas resources as well. There were handouts. So even if you weren't writing down feverishly, like a lot of us were in the meeting, you had that to take home with you and be able to have those contacts.
I know you mentioned some of our purveyors were in attendance, and I know some of our purveyors have very busy schedules. Is that maybe something that we could do a topic at our purveyor meeting as a?
We've talked about it, and I think the challenge, I think you need the people who attend the monthly purveyor meetings tend to be general managers or public works directors. And these folks speak a completely different language that we are not equipped to do. So I know Channel Counties has had some cybersecurity sessions, which I think have been.
Once annually, we bring in members from Calleguas or CISA or a combination thereof, and we have a monthly every year for cybersecurity.
I think that's probably a more effective forum so they can bring in the cybersecurity folks. And when we have our monthly purveyor meetings, I don't think you'd reach the right audience.
Okay. Yeah, I just love how collaborative we are with our purveyors and other water districts. So, I think you do a great job with our cybersecurity. So as the local authority, I guess, let's try to spread that. I guess we already do that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. All right, up next, I'm going to ask the board what items you would like to be brought up. I have 1, 10, and 6 here already.
I'll add 1968-70.
1968-70. All right. Dr. McMillan, you have any to add? Dr. Quady, do you have any to add?
I have 46, 57, 63, 66, 68, and a block of 70 to 75.
70 to 70. All right, we got a record amount. Ready, staff? We'll go ahead and get started with item 1, brackish groundwater desalter optimization study in Upper Calleguas Water Creek watershed. I'm just wondering where we're at with all this and what the schedule and timeline is going to be for developing this.
So we have a pretty complete draft scope that we've distributed to the various members of the working group, which are about, I think, 9 of our purveyors. I've asked for their comments by later this month, depending on how significant their comments are. And the deadline for the comments is the 17th. I'll need a little time to go through those and filter through them, get them back to the consultant. My hope would be that we'd have a final scope ready to bring to the board in March or April.
Okay.
Depending on how significant the comments are.
Perfect. Any other questions on number 1? Right, up next, my question was gonna be on number 10. Very interesting one. Calleguas welcomed the Oklahoma Farm Bureau for a tour and briefing that included a discussion of history of Ventura County. How did the Oklahoma Farm Bureau end up in Ventura County, Calleguas?
So a woman that works at CoLab was working at the Oklahoma Farm Bureau when after she was finished with school. So when the annual American-wide Farm Bureau meeting was in Anaheim, they contacted Brianne and said, since we're going to be out here, can we come visit Ventura County? And she said, absolutely. And they wanted to see some water infrastructure. And so they contacted us.
So they came to.
Oh, fun.
They also visited some of the farming operations around here, Underwood, and
Went to Levin's Ranch, and then we had all had dinner at the Yolanda's. They had update from Maureen McGuire at the Farm Bureau, and Jody Schweitzer and Louise Lampara from CoLab.
we hosted them here for a lunch as well, which I want to recognize Kat and others who made that possible. We made it as Ventura County focused as possible. We had Ventura County grown flowers, Ventura County grown strawberries, and in a first ever, I made strawberry balsamic jam and Ian made sourdough bread for the visitors. So this was a very warm welcome, and they were very appreciative.
They were very appreciative. It was very interesting. They have their water problems are very similar in the kind of general problems and very, very different in the particularities.
Yeah.
So we're shocked by the cost of things out here.
So are we.
Yeah. In my mind.
All right. I had mentioned 6, but I actually I had a typo. I meant 66, which Director Quady brought up too. Up next, we have number 19. And that is going to be public outreach and engagement. The January Purveyor Managers Meeting. Director Rob, what was your question on this one?
Is that mine?
Yes, that was yours. Was that a typo?
No. We talked about fire preparedness. I think it's a very timely thing just because I saw a notice on watch duty that there was a fire going on. And we have hot, dry winds right now. So great timing on that discussion.
Yeah, we scheduled it to essentially match up with the 1-year anniversary of the Eaton and Palisades fires, but it was a really fantastic program.
Yeah.
Great speakers, very relevant, actionable content. It was I thought it was one of the best purveyor meetings we'd ever had. And I really felt that everyone walked away in that room with at least one actionable thing that they were going to do for their agency to be better prepared in the face of wildfire. Yeah. But the presentation about what Paradise area went through is just staggering.
Well, and when all those fires were going on, a lot of our purveyors were narrowly affected or affected. And it's, it's one of those things where the more you can, the less multiple catastrophes you can have at the same time. If you have fire and then it burns down your water system, that's not ideal.
I was very pleased that the county and the sheriff people showed up too to listen to the Paradise thing.
Yes, I thought it was
really key.
Equally helpful for them to share, not just share the content they were going to share about AB 367 implementation, but also to hear the experience, what Paradise went through firsthand.
I love how involved our sheriff has become in water.
Yeah, and this was the Office of Emergency Services, which is under the sheriff, but there's lots of different branches of that particular organization.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have 68. Director Robert.
Another one of mine.
Yeah, it was one of yours. You have 68 and 7.
And Director Quady's.
I thought we had some other ones in between. Was I wrong?
46.
Yeah, I think we got 46 first.
It's good. I gotta keep flipping back to my numbers. I should have wrote them on a different paper.
I was gonna make a joke about 68 where we gave out 10 and 15-year awards. So I was gonna tell the interns to prepare for a decade of commitment.
So.
All right.
Yeah, 46.
All right. Item 46, Director Quady.
So mine was just, is there anything new from the SGIP administrator or Terra Verde?
From the estimate yet, but we are working with Terra Verde to prepare the RFP proposal. So once we get the letter from Edison that we've been allocated the funds for our project, we will be able to go out with the RFP for the design build project.
That's cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Director Brady, 57?
Yeah, I just have a great job and not a public safety power shut off. That was the
Again, and not even one we're having today, a different one.
yeah, so thank you for that, Steph.
And that the plant was running at that time. So we had all pumps going, chemicals going, and Wes and they were, being here on site was able to respond quickly. And there's kind of all hands on deck. We were running around trying to figure out what's going on.
Seems to be.
Not a glitch. We kept producing water.
No notice.
All right. Director Quady, number 63.
Yeah, congratulations on the review from the Inter-County Air Pollution District. Good job. It sounds like it's great to have other set of eyes look at things and then to see that it all complied. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, to continue to build that relationship with them is paramount for us. They did help us along when we had the PSPS events and changed how they structured emergencies versus allowing us to create our own destiny and get those generators on once we get the warning from Edison. So yes, it is always great to not have any violations.
Yeah.
You might as well stay up for 66 unless Matt's going to handle it.
Yeah, up next, I had and Director Quady had 66, and I just wanted to say congratulations to Ronnie Flores on his the Materials Protection and Performance Coatings Application Specialist Level 1 certification. I'm happy to see that you guys are taking it seriously and going to town, learning what it takes to prevent rust and do preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance on our equipment so that we don't have to replace it in 10 years, right? We're going to take care of it. So please thank Ronnie Flores for me, and that's all I have. Director Quady.
I'll pile on to those comments and great work. Great work.
Thank you.
Up next, we had item 68. We did 68, but Director Quady didn't.
Yeah, that's
Also had it, so you had to put it.
just congratulations on years of service to those guys and those folks.
Congratulations. And 70 to 75.
Yeah, so this is a block, it's what I see, all of these, and I just think all this shows great initiative regarding workplace safety. Having emergency staff from another agency to review ops facilities and interagency coordination is, I think, epic. I think that's just so fantastic. Thank you all for all of those contributions in there, and that's just outstanding. Seek another set of eyes and have it get some feedback as well. So,
Thank you.
That's amazing. In a month, we've got half a page of risk management. That's an ongoing thing. Whereas a lot of places, risk management is addressing the issue when it happens that year. So no, this is just a tack onto that.
thank you so much. That's
Thank you.
no question.
Happy to accept the praise on behalf of the department.
So
All right, up next, we're going back to the consent calendar. Would any board member like to pull any of the items out from the consent calendar? Okay.
item 6D, we do have Elaine Sampson from Chandler Investment. We'd like to make some brief remarks. Dan, I don't know if you want to introduce her.
Good evening, directors. Tonight we have the capital projects report. So we're still doing really good in our investments.
I said quarterly capital projects.
Quarterly
investment
report. Too many reports going on these days. And so I would like again to introduce Elaine Sampson. She's going to kind of go through some of the report and give you some of the highlights. And we actually just got it on a nice little PowerPoint presentation this time instead of just trying to scroll through the actual report so we can see some of the graphs. So here is Elaine Sampson from Chandler Investments.
Hello, everyone. Elena Marie here. Thank you, Dan, for the introduction. I actually have my notes on my own laptop, so I will scroll through both. But before I get into the slides, I just want to make a note that the primary word I'm going to be saying a lot tonight is uncertainty. And so want to make sure that that theme is coming through very clearly. That theme is in regards to the Federal Reserve. Certainly, we have heard news about Federal Jerome Powell potentially having criminal charges pressed against him with regards to the renovation of the Federal Reserve building. Senator Tillis, on the Banking Committee has made it clear that he does not wish to push through any nominations until that is clarified. So that is going to be a part of what we're all watching. The second piece with the Federal Reserve is with regard to the case of Trump versus Cook. This was heard by the Supreme Court last month. The market is anticipating that she will not be removed from the Federal Reserve. But those are two big actions that we are all watching. We all understand that Jerome Powell will be no longer be chair, just as part of his natural end of his term come May. So keeping that in mind, that's creating a lot of uncertainty with regards to paths with interest rates. Geopolitically, certainly we've seen a lot of uncertainty with regards to the Venezuelan president being detained. There was questions on whether that would impact oil prices. It did not substantially impact them. And the other was lots of discussion around Greenland being acquired by the US. The markets came down just slightly and then have since rebounded a bit. There's new things with AI, but with regards to Greenland, that geopolitical was there. And then, of course, you've heard me talk about tariffs in the past, and the tariffs, we're still waiting to find out whether they will be deemed legal or illegal by the Supreme Court. All of these have very broad impacts on our overall economy, and this is the environment with which we are investing the portfolio. So I thought it was very important, if these things are on your mind, to let you know that, yes, we are thinking about them too. The big difference between now and say a year ago at this time is that the market is now waiting for actual action as opposed to news or just talks in terms of reaction. So keep that in mind as you're looking to these slides. So with regards to employment, what you see here is a continuation of a weakening employment market. You can tell that by the non-farm payrolls on the left-hand side continues to come down. Unemployment is also ticking up nationally. We're at about 4.4%. Here in California, we've actually stayed in the same range bound 5.5% that we've been in for quite some time. So nationally, we're seeing more weakening than what we're seeing here in California. The next slide is Consumer Price Index. Sorry, I now see a picture of all of you here on the screen. The Consumer Price Index, what you see here is that inflation has also remained in the same range-bound area. What that means for all of us is that it's not declining the way we'd like to see it. We want to see on that right-hand side, inflation coming down to 2%. It's still continuing to be about 2.8%. From a positive perspective, the Federal Reserve is looking at that price increase that we saw last year's from tariffs as a one-time price event. And their goal is to make sure that it doesn't become inflation, ongoing inflation. From a consumer perspective, what you'll hear on the news is a lot of talk about strong Black Friday sales, a lot of shopping on Cyber Monday. But what I'll note for you is that left-hand side slide is not inflation adjusted. So what we're seeing is a K-shaped economy. And what I mean by that is those who are higher wealth, who own homes or have stocks, are feeling pretty good right now. They feel very buoyed by the economy. And with tax season underway, I do taxes on the side. I'm seeing this already with the various impacts from the One Big Beautiful Bill. Consumers who itemize, particularly in states like ours, are feeling a little bit more flush with cash coming in. So we're expecting that to have a bit of a positive influence on GDP because those folks are the ones driving the economy with the higher incomes. Now, on the lower end of the economy, that downward slide of the K-shaped economy, it's not plummeting. Wages are still slightly above inflation, which is a positive, but certainly not to the level of what we'd hope with regards to trying to keep up. So people aren't feeling very good about where their wages are. That a lot of cars that are $40,000 and less are sitting in lots. We're not seeing those get sold. And frankly, the average cost of a car now here in the US is $50,000. So very, very unaffordable for many people. So what we're seeing is lower wage earners are starting to focus more on the non-discretionary spend. So think about people buying clothes for their kids for Christmas as opposed to toys. So a difference in perspective there. And that also kind of explains why confidence is down. The majority of people are those more lower income individuals. So as a percentage, that's helping bring down overall confidence and sentiment. So what does this mean for GDP? Together, what we're anticipating for the fourth quarter GDP is for that strength that I was just talking about. And again, inflation, not inflation adjusted. We expect in the GDP to be stronger in Q4. Moving forward here, what we see with regards to the Federal Reserve, on the back of that uncertainty, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates on that right-hand side 3 times in 2025. The markets are anticipating 2 additional cuts here in 2026, one around June, July, and another in December. That's with all of the uncertainty that I said with regards to what's happening around the Federal Reserve. And what that means for bond prices and all of this fitting together for the US Treasury yield curve is 2 things. You'll see that on that right-hand side, the US Treasury yield curve come down on the shorter end of the curve. As the Fed funds rates come down, you'll see between 0 and 2 years start to get lower, but we're also seeing a steepening in the rest of the curve. And the reason for that is, again, my favorite word, uncertainty. The market is wanting to price in more of a risk premium because of that uncertainty. We are a double A plus country now, not AAA, and we're seeing a little bit of a spread there too. If you look at our country in comparison to like a place like Germany, our debt costs a little bit more. And as a result of those 2 things, may feel like topsy-turvy world for me to say this, but it's actually a positive for your overall portfolio. And the reason for that is, as the value of the bonds that exist in your portfolio that are in that 0 to 2 year range, the value of that goes up. And as we reinvest, we're reinvesting into an environment that's a little bit higher than where we anticipated. So you're getting ongoing yields that are a bit higher. So that ends up being a positive with regards to the kind of market environment we're in. So specifically on your portfolio, I'm going to start at the bottom of the page. You can see we increased the market value to $175 million. That is not great work by Chandler. That was actually a contribution mostly of $8 million by the district into the portfolio. But I will be proud to say that about 1.8 of that increase, 1.8 million of that increase is income earned on the quarter. So very strong continuing earnings. Certainly it continues to be a high quality portfolio at AA+. Your purchase yield remains, your average purchase yield of all the securities purchased in the portfolio remains strong at 4.22%. And it continues to be supported by the fact that we're keeping the portfolio a little bit longer than your benchmark at 1.81 years compared to your benchmark of 1.76. So what does that mean with regards to the sector? We're still preferring US Treasuries over agencies. Lots of talk in the marketplace about possible privatization, Fannie and Freddie bringing more mortgages, $200 billion worth of mortgages onto their books. So, and we're not seeing a ton of issuance from those entities. So we're preferring a little bit more agencies to US Treasuries. The other place that you see a little bit of a tick up in value is, it says agency CMBS, that's Freddie Mac. Those are multi-home properties, like think about apartments. We're seeing value there because these are fully guaranteed by Freddie Mac, but you still pick up about another 20 basis points over US Treasuries. So the one slide that's not on here that I would want to mention is just your overall performance. You're continuing to see outperformance across the board with your portfolio. Specifically, I just want to say that we continue to focus on this being a sleep at night portfolio. We're not purchasing issuers that you're going to need to be worrying about hearing on the news. That is not our intent. We have a very active credit committee that is looking at all of the names very proactively. We don't wait for the credit agencies to move. We make our own decisions on those names. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Sounds like good stuff going on. Thank you for the update. Do we have questions?
Yeah, I have some question. So you're gonna have to train Scott here. So on page 20 of the report, so you said agency CMBS, so that's the mortgage-backed securities.
This one here, yes.
Or corporate. And so then agency itself, is that a composite of something?
Those are all of the federal agencies. So that would be a combination of Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Federal Home Loan Bank. It's the 4 different agencies that are allowed under California Government Code, which exists within the portfolio.
Okay.
So these are all the categorizations of all of the individual securities. That's what's represented on this page.
Okay, and then I had one back a bit. We don't have we're not switching to class, right? That's not in this report.
We have not started investing in class yet.
Okay. And then the other one was kind of a funny one. It's on page 11, net exports and imports.
Yes.
And so I think so that's the bulk of activity. Is that kind of what that is? It's because it confuses me when you have exports and imports in the same line. So you guys subtracting them.
Yeah, so the way that the federal government reports on that particular line, the net exports and imports, if we're on that page, you'll see that they think about GDP really made up of 4 primary components: the consumer, which is 2/3 of it. So that's actually the bulk. And then you have the federal government, just government at large, federal and state and local government, overall domestic investment, and the net exports and imports, and those net each other out. So thinking about what we are sending out from the US versus what we're buying in. And so what you see on that page for March 2025, that first quarter, and these are all quarter over quarter numbers, is that a number of companies and individuals purchased a lot of goods first quarter to get ahead of the tariffs. And then the subsequent, so there was a lot more imports than there were exports. That's why it's a negative number. The subsequent quarter, we went back to a norm. You net those 2 out, you'll notice that the average is about 0%. So it just normalized. We just brought all the goods forward 1 quarter to get ahead of tariffs as a country.
I mean, at the beginning of the report, there was a comment. I'm probably not reading more into it than I should, but it says something about as economic data becomes more normalized. I think that's talking about something else, but I'm just wondering, is there a hitch in the type of information we're getting economic-wise?
Yeah, so a lot of the data is very, very delayed. We're still waiting for some data from November here in February. And typically we see that data 1 month delayed, at most 2. And so we're at this point, we're already at 3 months delay for quite a bit of, I wouldn't say quite a bit. Much of the data came at the very last part of January. But what we've now heard with the partial shutdown is many of those data points are now being postponed yet again. So it's really hard for the Federal Reserve to make decisions without the data that they're used to getting on a regular basis.
Uncertainty, I heard.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Other questions? Director McMillan, Director Robert? I just wanted to mention, I know when we selected Chandler and Associates, one of the reasons was because you represent many other special districts. And I'm wondering, how does our account and returns compare to some of your other accounts?
I think one of the differences is in terms of the overall risk profile of some of the other special districts, particularly some of the water districts. I'm thinking about, for instance, Eastern Muni Water District and Western Muni are 2 of our clients out in Riverside. Their portfolios are a little bit larger. And because of some of their capital improvement projects, they've actually asked us to have the optionality to extend out to 10 years worth of securities as opposed to limiting it to 5 years, which is what California Government Code standard is. That's helped their returns a bit when we went up to a 5% level there 2 years ago. Now it's a little bit different of a question that we're seeing that steepening yield curve. So there might be some opportunity again soon. Their yields, I would say, or their returns are a little bit higher as a result of that. We also work very closely with Dan to make sure that when there's any liquidity needs, we make sure that we all freeze the account and so that the district can withdraw funds. Now, certainly if you're freezing an account and not reinvesting it, that can create a little bit of a drawdown on total potential returns on the portfolio. But the primary mandate that we have as public investors is safety and liquidity. We need to make sure that that's what we're prioritizing. And we've been able to very successfully do that with the district to make sure that you're able to meet your expenditure needs at the same time as investing the portfolio.
Okay, great. Happy to hear that.
I think historically over the The time that we've been in Bandler, the market's been pretty uncertain and I think you all have done a fantastic job of navigating that and putting us in a able position and investment positive position. So great job so far.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Good work. Thank you.
Yep.
And would you like to add something for that item, Dan?
Nope, I am good with that item.
Good with that item. Okay. So do we have other questions or comments on the consent calendar, or do we have a motion?
If everyone's fine with it, I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Whiting.
Aye.
Director McMillan.
Yes.
Director Pacala is absent. Director Robert.
Yes.
Director Avila.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Up next, I know why Dan is here now. We have December 2025 financial statements. Dan Smith.
Okay, good evening, directors. My first report of the night is on the December financial statements. Kind of rehash the water sales. We've been selling a little less water. It rained a lot in the early part of the fiscal year, which was a little unusual for us. With that set us behind from our goals and what we thought we'd be as far as water sales go. So as you can see, we're close to 3,000 acre feet, a little more than 3,000 acre feet behind where we thought we'd be at this point. But the good thing is, it hasn't set us back too far. We are showing a little bit behind as far as where we thought we'd be as the net water sales when we net together the revenues versus the expenditures. We're behind by only $1.6 million, which is not that bad when we start looking at some of the other areas that we're saving money, like the admin expense. We were about $3 million below where we've been budgeted through the first 6 months of the year. Some of that will be got up as we get through the last 6 months, but there is some savings showing at this point, so we're looking pretty healthy. The other one is also taxes and interest. I know that this one is only showing that we're only $600,000 ahead of our budget, but really it's going to be more than that because not all the property taxes came in. We were short about $1 million, which showed up in January due to the county's timing, just in the first couple of days. So really, we're doing really good on the interest and the property taxes. It's making up some of that shortfall. So overall, when we look at the operating income, it went from we're short on our water sales to our operating income. We're doing better than what we'd expected. So we've got an extra $2.3 million. And then the principal and interest continues to be right where we expected. The interest for that variable rate bond has been lower than what was anticipated, which is good. So we're not spending that much money on that interest for that large bond issue. To kind of give you a snapshot on the pumping expenses, we continue to be pretty close to budget as far as the revenues and the expenditures go. Both of them are a little under budget on the expenses and over budget on the revenues. So overall, it's looking pretty good. There's some more savings for us that's going into that savings that we need. And overall, we talk about this is the utility power, and that's a little higher than expected for the year. And that's because of the running of the plant, the extra time this year that wasn't budgeted for. So overall, the pumping expenses, you can see that all of our percentages are pretty close when we're looking at the revenues and the pumping power. We're actually over on the revenues, under on the expenses, where we expected, and the utility power is just about at the budget already through the first 6 months. Looking at for the month of December, you can see that we were a little bit short on the operating revenues. As we came closer, we're getting closer on to making some of the water sales, but it wasn't quite there. The non-operating revenue and expenses, you can see that it shows us short by $337,000. A lot of that has to do with the property taxes that didn't come in. If we got that $1 million in this month, then it would have been showing as a positive, so we would have been doing really good. When we look at the cash balances, you can see that we increased our cash balances in the month by quite a bit of money, $7 million, $7.5 million. That was due to two things. One is the property taxes. We got about $5.5 million in, which is always healthy for us for our cash position. And the other one, you'll remember that the reason we had a negative balance at the end of November was the one purveyor who didn't pay in November. They paid in December. And so we got an extra $1.2 million or additional $2 million just for that. So that, onto the financial ratios, you can see that because of that property tax coming in, all of our ratios are going to be improving. The current ratio is improved because we've got additional cash, the assets are going up, and the liabilities were staying the same. Same with the quick ratio, which is not counting some of the less easy to get rid of, like our inventory and our prepaids. We take those out. That ratio continues to be pretty normal. It's in really good shape. We're under the 1% or the 100%. So the 24%, we're looking really good. And you can see that our debt service coverage is up over 3 at the moment. We budgeted 2.44. It will start going down over the next few months as we spend more than we are bringing in because of expenses. Do that during this time. And same thing with the times interest earned. This is the 1 month where we look really good halfway through the year. And all the ratios jump up all of a sudden and carry us through to the end of the year. With that, that's all I have for the financial statements, unless there's some additional questions.
Questions from the board? All right. Easiest one you've had in months, Dan. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Good work. All right. Up next, we have report on purveyor input for cost study. Dan's. Welcome back, Dan.
This one, there's a little more to this. Dan received direction from the board regarding the cost of service study a couple of months ago. Dan's going to talk about some of the opportunities we provided for the purveyors to provide their input, as well as what some of that initial input is looking like. And then we're also going to talk, well, Dan is going to talk a little bit about the mountain water rates before, and I'll say a few things before when he gets to that part.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the purveyor input that we've received for the cost of service study. So you can see that we presented the proposed cost of service study over 2 different meetings. So first we went to the December 11th, 2025 meeting with regular purveyors. Started introducing them to the concept of the cost of service study and the addition of the new fixed charge. When we went to that one, it turns out that there were not that many finance people there. So we did decide to have that second meeting in early January to make sure that we got the finance individuals of all of our purveyors involved as much as possible, since this is more of a finance area rather than some of it's in the public works. Some of these people are typically public works, especially when we're doing the tour at the Las Virgenes Interconnection. So with that, we keep encourage them to give us questions and comments throughout this process. So far, we've received it from these 5 agencies, and we've been in dialogue with them, talking with them, answering their questions as we go along.
Only one has submitted a formal letter. The rest has been kind of question and answer. We may get more formal comments, but the screenshot up there is of Oxnard's letter, and then the letter in its entirety was included in the board packet.
Yes. So here are just a little flavor of some of the questions and the comments that we've been getting. A lot of it has to do with, what is the need for this new fixed charge? And also, why are we trying to shift to it? So we were answering a lot of these questions as we were going along. They asked about drought rates, which is not something we had really considered at this time, or the rate stabilization fund, and Director Pacala would like to hear that because that was one of his issues. But also the purveyors were bringing that up. Is that something that we could take a look into? And some of this is instead of maybe doing the fixed charge as well, not just doing along with. A lot of them questioned why we were heading for the 100% fixed cost recovery. There was questions that they didn't support that. They wanted something a little bit less. Like, can you do less than 100%? And then they really wanted to know what the other wholesaler agencies are. Because if you've seen, I think we showed you the slide with all the retail purveyors on it and where they were at. Then they wanted to see some of the wholesaler purveyors. And I do have a slide that's coming up that'll show you a little bit of that. And then were there other agencies that were collecting 100%? They asked it a delay in starting implementation. I know we were talking about doing it in 2027. They asked, can we push it out a little bit, give them time to incorporate into their fee studies that needs to be done, and then consider less than the 10-year rolling average. Maybe a 5-year rolling average was their suggestion at that time. And then I did say this one a lot. They were asking if it was going to be offset by the variable or reduction in the variable rate. And yes, it is. So that was a pretty easy one. I like that question, easy to answer. And then they made some comments too about how, they know that more fixed charges adversely affect conservation. The more you have a fixed charge, you're gonna have to pay for the water no matter how much they take. You're saying the conservation is gonna be affected. And then there was also comments about how it will affect the low water users, people who have been conserving and they don't take much water, and now you put a fixed charge in there, there's gonna be some adverse effects on them as well. One thing that they were on agreement was to do it implement it over a phased-in approach. They like that, bring it in slow, steady, instead of just trying to do it all at once and have to have this large fixed charge on them all at once. So with all their discussions, we are working on developing some additional options that we're going to have to bring back to the board. We're looking to reduce the goal to an 80% fixed cost recovery instead of the 100%. We started looking at the 5-year, actually looking at implementing in 28, 29 instead of doing it in 27. It doesn't really affect us that much. It's just kind of getting us started a little bit later. And then also do a 5-year rolling average for the allocation and see what that looks like. So we are currently developing all this. And this is what we're kind of planning to bring back to the finance committee when we come back in March. So this was not a graph, but this is kind of a survey that Palace has done in 2023 with a whole bunch of wholesale water agencies. And they went outside the state to kind of see where they were, mostly because there aren't that many wholesale water agencies in California. And so they wanted more of a comprehensive study to say this is what people are doing. I added us to the study. We weren't in there originally, but I took their information and put us in. We're currently around 59%, you can see, as far as our cost recovery goes, so close to 60%. And we're one of the better agencies as far as the cost recovery goes. So we're really looking pretty good. And to answer that question, are there any agencies at 100%? There's a couple that are collecting more than 100% on fixed charges. So they're recovering some of their variable expenses. And one of them is supposedly AVAC out in by Lancaster, Antelope Valley. So I found that interesting. So I thought I'd share that. This will be shared also with the purveyors when we have another purveyor meeting. But I found that very interesting.
I can't wrap my head around that. 179%.
Yeah.
What's that?
I can't wrap my head around that. 179%.
Yeah, I can't really either. I have to really dig into the numbers, but this is what their survey said. But if they're paying out variable and they have more variable expenses than they do fixed, but they're charging on a fixed basis, they will recover some of their variable costs on a fixed revenue basis. But that's a lot. So there's 2 agencies that are doing that. So they must be sitting in a really good position. They can do that. So that's all I have on the purveyor input. We're going to kind of switch over to the Met rates. You want to?
Well, I guess if there's questions on the cost service study before we transition to this topic.
I just want to touch base on the letter from Oxnard from Michael Wolf. First of all, I wanted to thank them for a detailed response. It's it's not we support or don't support. It's in depth. They recognize that we're trying to improve our revenues, stability and all that, and even recommended alternatives to our fixed and variable rate structure. Are we looking at some of the recommendations that they make? Some ideas I hadn't heard of, and so it seems like a viable alternative to look at. Is that something that we're looking into?
We haven't started looking at it. This was one of the last comment letters that came in, so we haven't really sent Raftellus down that one yet. And if it's something that the board would be interested in, we could definitely, start them. I don't want to get them on too many rabbit holes without having the board coming from the board of directors, because we can send them down a whole bunch of different things that
maybe
all the purveyors are coming up with ideas.
Do you want to maybe look at it and we can sit down and with Dan and look at it? It's a very well written statement, and there's a lot of good points there. And Oxnard being, well, we've got varying interests in our purveyors, and Oxnard, this potentially affecting Oxnard in a big way. I think it's important to really listen to the recommendations and interest, and also, you know, if they recommend an alternative that we haven't looked at, we should definitely consider it. So.
And we're gonna go through this at the next finance.
We're gonna go through some of this at the finance committee and then bring it back to the board for the board to really give us more direction at that point as well.
Maybe we can touch base on this before that to kind of explore it in case there's something that comes up for the finance committee.
Well, it sounds like this letter was just recently received.
Yeah, January 20th.
Questions here.
Yeah.
He's got a list of, he's hearing the questions. That's good.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Dan? The board.
To tee up kind of the second part of this presentation, which is about the Met's proposed water rates. They just released their initial, so Met does a biennial budget and rate setting process, so it's every 2 years. They just started releasing the information. It was 600 pages.
Yeah, 650 plus.
So Dan and Henry have been digging into that in detail. This is very early in the process. It's several months of meetings and workshops that Director McMillan will be attending and that we will be monitoring, and we will make sure our purveyors know about if they want to monitor. We're very much in the getting to understand what's being proposed and asking questions. So I would just caution that this is very preliminary. We have not even seen what Met staff is presenting to the committee or board yet. That the committee meeting, which I'm just going to call finance because it's shorter, is next Tuesday. So we will have more information for our board as this process unfolds, but we wanted to give you kind of a preview, a sneak peek of where everything is headed here.
Yeah. And some of it sounds scary when you start taking a look at some of the numbers. Scared the heck out of me a little bit.
But Dan's not scared anymore.
I am not scared anymore. Let's see how
We've been on a journey.
as we get through this.
And you start your presentation by highlighting 9.5%.
Absolutely. Well, this is the Met. You know, they're coming out with their 9.5% increases for the next 2 years. And you can also see that they've got a string of now 9% increases all the way out for the next 8 years after that. This is what they typically do. They call this their average overall rate because it includes everything. And it doesn't necessarily say how it affects us as one of their member agencies. And so that's what we're going to kind of dive into because, you know, you look at this and you're like, this is going to small. Again, this is their preliminary budget that's coming out with their water rates. And it's hard to say where they end up because it always changes usually before we get to the end. This is just their first iteration, but you see this, the purveyors are going to see this, and we're going to talk with them after this, but it just gets a little bit scary when you start seeing numbers this high all of a sudden, because this is a lot higher than what they've put out in the past. This was the one that really started, you know, this is for the 2027 numbers. You can see that we've got some good news is that they've actually are working on that fixed charge that they've included in the budget. This is the part that Christine, Henry, and I spent, I can't even tell you how many meetings listening to the Met and all the member agencies meeting together to go through and figure this out, how we wanted to do this. We ended up with those 3 different fixed charges now at Met. But you can see that it's also reducing the volume charge, the variable rate charge, and it's being put onto the fixed charge. So this might also have an impact on what we do with the cost of service study, which is why it's kind of related to this. Because these numbers are pretty large as well when we're talking about additional fixed costs that we're going to be paying to Metropolitan. But overall, you know, it looks like, you know, the variable rate's dropping and we're figuring out what the fixed charge is. The good news is overall, the volume rate for the tier 1 for us is actually going to decrease by 3.8%. The bad thing is, I mean, we have additional fixed charges coming up. So this is the one that scared me, is when we started looking at 2028, the next year after that. This treatment use standby charge was 825% increase. And I was like, wow, what the heck are they doing with this? But when you get down and you realize into the 671 pages, you've got to find the one page that kind of explains that they're in transition on how they're implementing these 3 charges. And you'll see that how they're divvying it up is changing from 27 to 28. Once you get to 28, it's going to be a little more consistent going forward. So because we're in the first year and we're using, like, one of them's I think it's that one, but it's the max year minus the average. And so year one, they're just using the max year because that's the only information they have. And year two, they're including the average in there. So they're doing some calculations behind the scenes that are making it move around a little bit. But I wanted to point that out because that's the one that everybody looks at and goes, oh my gosh, what are they doing there? And when you look at the underlying dollar amounts, you'll see that it's really not changing and it's actually supposed to decrease next year, which is the good news for us. The other thing I want to point out is the very large increases that we're still seeing on the RTS and the capacity charge. I don't see that changing too much, but you never know when they finally get done. But we're talking 23, 26% increases on those rates as well. So they're large. There's some large increases in this. And I can't say that we're gonna, we used to have a 6%. We try to keep it at 6%. We're still not there. We're not gonna make that. So when we looked at that first charge, and I know some of these numbers are small, but this is the three different fixed charges that are added for the treatment charge. We have the first one's going to cost us about $3.5 million. The used standby is $1.2 million. And then the remaining standby is $5.6 million. So when we add all those together, it's over $10 million that we're looking to have an additional fixed charge. And we're going to be looking to do as a fixed charge to our purveyors as well, because we want to continue to keep that as a pass through from Met to our purveyors. So that's why we may have to really consider what we're going to do with our fixed, if we're going to do a fixed charge. To kind of give you a little easier way to read this, you can see that, in 2027, you can see those MWD allocated costs. The 33 million for the treatment peaking charge, then there's the $11 million for the used standby, and then 52 for the remaining standby. And in 2028, those numbers aren't significantly different. The real difference is the way that they're actually using as an allocation number. So you can see those two that I highlighted have changed from that 170 to the 171, where they're going from an average peak day in 27 to our actual one peak day in 28. And same thing happens, like I was talking about, that calculation that they have to do from 27 to 28 for that one. So that 825% increase, when it hits us, it's an 11.3 decrease in the percentage from what we're doing from 27 to 28. But overall, down at the bottom, you can see that's still $10.4 million in fixed charges for 27 and $9.9 million in 28. So it's still a nice chunk of change that we're talking about here. So really, let's start talking about what I call potential water rates, because in this, I've also added our rate that we have sitting in our long-range finance plan. That's what I'm sort of expecting to have happen this year, but we are just beginning our budget process. So it's really hard to say where we end up by that point. But I've been pretty accurate with my long-range finance plans. I do that. So looking in for the 27 year, you can see that we're looking at a 3.8% decrease in the overall volumetric rate, which I talked about. You can also see that we also added this $142 of treatment fixed costs, as we're looking at it as a per acre foot rate. So that's something. And then this is what I put in for our charges. We're looking at a 4.9% when we were looking at our O&M construction together. So an overall 4.9 on our variable rate. And we're looking at to increase our capacity charges. We've still added some additional assets like the lost version, this interconnection. That's considered an emergency asset for us, and it falls into the capacity charge. We've added that in, so it's going to increase the rate this year. We're an overall rate of 6% that we're adding. But our 6% brings down their 7.57%. And so overall, we're looking at a 7.2% rate increase for 27, which is better than 9.5. So it's actually come down. Now let's look at 28. And it's not that much worse. They are looking at a full site, tier one rate is a 9.7% increase. So they are hitting the 9.5 on that. We're at 5.6% increase on our O&M capital together. But since we're not changing our capital, our capacity charge, it drops our rate that we're looking forward to, which is a reasonable amount for increasing in our rates. And that brings our the total one down to 8.6%. So again, we're still ending up below a 9.5, but Met's hitting at 9.5, they said. The one thing I want to point out too is that the combined fixed and variable treatment cost increase. So there was a 12.6% starting in 20 previous year. It's going to drop 3.7 in 27, and then it's only going up 4.4% in 28. So it's becoming a little more reasonable. You know, the increase in 25 was a 38% increase. So at least they're starting to keep it somewhat in the realm of normality and not going off like they had in the last few years. So it's nice to see. The last thing I'm going to point out, this is also what I consider good news for us. The 2 years when we're looking at the 27 and 28 combined we're looking at about a 15.8% increase. But all my projections were saying we were going to have more like a 19.6% increase. And that was based on what Met was saying, that the rate increases that were coming. So they did actually decrease what they said they were going to do, which has helped us bring this down. So when I talk to the purveyors, you know, I've been telling them all these times, prepare for these 2 years because it's going to be large increases. And it's actually less than what we had been telling them. So hopefully they look at that as good news. They're still high, but it's less than what we were projecting. It's much easier to sell that than telling them later that it's more than what we're projecting. So it brings a sigh of relief to me to see the rates like this. I mean, they're still large and that still has problems, and we're still going to be working with them and trying to figure all this out because there's a lot of work to do. But again, it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be.
But it might be.
It still might be.
Because I did do an engineering tour on the Apollo River stuff. And we were told by the actual people who are trying to maintain that system that we're looking at just 10 more years before it just totally collapses. So we're going to have to rebuild the whole system. And Shivasi said that you're looking at 50 billion, 50. So, and that's not been factored into the rates. So they're looking at doubling our CIP program from 600 billion in 2 years, doubling it. So that is going to have impacts.
How soon can we start building all the salters? Next year?
Yeah, we don't have that information, and that's not what that's putting out to us yet. So
it's coming.
Yeah, it's not built into their tenure either, by the way. So
it's coming, and it lines up with something I had mentioned before that Don had told me, and it's coming.
But it is, as you mentioned, reinforcement for us to develop local water supplies. And as Met rates get higher, the cost proposition can change. These projects are not cheap to implement and they're not simple to implement either, but they have some advantages in terms of local control, in terms of local reliability, and in terms of our ability to manage the rates. So.
And there's something to be said, because I was gonna ask after this, if you give me a one sentence reason why Met's rates are going up, which is a very loaded question, but I think it's generally infrastructure support, and you know, it's to that aging point. But could you imagine if we didn't maintain our infrastructure and we added a rate increase on top of that to maintain our system? And I think it just goes to show that, you know, the benefits you reap aren't necessarily are sometimes the ones that don't continue to cost you things. So, you know, we do a great job with our infrastructure maintenance, you know, and I think that has a huge help to not making this number much bigger when it passes through us. But yeah, there's a lot of ideas that go into local resiliency and reliability and adaptability, you know, interconnections, things like that. And I mean, I don't see this rate increase going down in the years, you know?
Yeah.
So the more we look locally and the more we be creative, and I think we are very creative, the better.
I would also note that we don't have infrastructure approaching its 100th birthday, which is what that is dealing with. So that's significant, but your point is well taken. Challenges ahead.
Services are different.
But we're well equipped to handle these challenges on a number of levels in terms of our representation at Metropolitan at the board level, at the staff level, our own financial management, our own infrastructure management, and our own ability to develop large collaborative successful projects.
And we're already working on several studies to move us in that path. So
yes,
it's helpful to see these bubbled out. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was ready for it. I mean, did a lot of analysis in just a couple of days and.
Did, I appreciate,
Continue.
Dan did a lot of work to pull this together for you in the last couple of days.
You do great work in presenting bad news.
Oh, I thought I was able to make it, put a little more positive spin on it, you know? Always helps.
Great work then.
All right, so just kind of go over the next steps. We've got the finance committee on March 3rd, where we're going to talk about really the cost of service study, and we'll probably continue to talk about met rates because it's sort of intertwined now because we're gonna have to come to a decision on what we want to do about our fixed charge if we want to continue that when we have to now divvy out another $10 million to the purveyors. I mean, they were questioning whether it was necessary already when we were doing $10 million. If we were going to try to do something else, that might just cause a problem. But we'll see. We'll be talking to them as well. Because the board meeting on the 18th, that's when I'm going to still bring back all of these kind of proposals that we've been working on already. And then also we can make some decisions at that time, what we want to do going forward. And then we'll talk to the purveyors on March 26th, which is the first one after the board meetings, when we make some decisions to tell them what we're kind of what. I'm going to give you the next step for the water rate.
Okay, I think Director Quady has a question.
I was just wondering, so maybe you're gonna come up to that, but so of all the questions that you pulled, we'll be able to see what all the different answers are and how we're going to adjust and or explain what we're doing.
Yeah, we can supply the answers.
Yeah, I think we can kind of put together, because we got the same or very similar questions from a number of the purveyors. So I think we can, in the finance committee room, we can get into more detail, walk through each of those kind of significant questions and the responses that Dan and I provided.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting because our rate study and, fixed cost versus variable cost, while Metropolitan's costs are being adjusted, it doesn't always track water sales and use and all that because of the industries or the infrastructure that we have. But there's something to be said about the variability between use and your rates matching or aligning a similar structure with your purveyor or your supplier. So depending on what Metropolitan does, like if we go in a drought and there's more fixed cost and we have more fixed cost, then we float in the similar environment. But if we have too much variation compared to Metropolitan, then we'll be more out of sync.
Yes.
Yeah. No question, just a statement.
To kind of give you the update of what we're going to be doing for the water rates, because that's what's really coming next. We're really going to be updating the purveyors too, kind of what the met rates are and how it affects us, because again, some of it's kind of scary, and to at least show them what it really means to us. And when we start talking about our rates, and make sure they know this is all very preliminary, because we are still a work in progress with Met, it's still a work in progress with us. Kind of give them where it's looking at this point. We'll do that right after the finance, I'm going to call it finance committee too, the MWD finance committee meeting that's coming up on the 10th. Then we're also going to be doing the February 24th. They have another full board workshop on the board on their budget. So that'll be interesting for us to attend. And then we'll discuss February 26th. We've got all this information, more information from Metropolitan on kind of what they're thinking, and then really present it to the purveyors on the 26th of this month. And then we're going to be continuing to do Met committees, purveyor meetings, board discussion as we go through the next 3 months, just to make sure that we're all knowing what's going on with this, with their rates and how we fit into this whole rate structure.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Dan. Questions, comments from the board?
Thank you for helping make a very complex situation a little clearer.
I try.
Thank you.
Doesn't always work, but I do try.
All right, thank you, sir. Up next, we have the water supply update from Jennifer Lancaster, manager.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a water resource supply update, but we felt it was time as the water year was shaping up a bit. This won't be all good news or all bad news either.
Yeah, what's good news to me is bad news to Dan, usually. So yeah, happy newish water year. This is a first update. As Christine said, we've had kind of a wild and exciting water year to date. And we have a really excellent milestone that we have hit, which is for the first time in 25 years, the entire state of California is drought free. So that is very cool, given what this map looked like just a few years ago. So looking at precipitation as of a couple days ago statewide, again, we've been doing great with the precipitation, really that series of storms that came in December and beginning of January. So right now, statewide, we're sitting at 117% of average for this date. And you can just see here that Southern California, I was telling a very different story last year. Last year, there was a lot up in Northern California and Southern California was quite dry. Here, Northern California still was doing okay, but we really got a lot down here in Southern California, which really helped is in terms of major reservoir levels. So statewide, the major supply reservoirs are at 123%. But most of those storms were rain. We didn't get as much snowpack as we would have liked to. So even though we're doing really well right now and we have a lot in reservoirs, that largest reservoir of the state, which is our snowpack that we use as we get into the summer, that is sitting only at 56%. So we are hoping for more snow, but we are kind of behind on that. So if we look at our own watershed, this is very interesting. We are now at 193% of average precipitation for this time of year. And in fact, we've already received 99% of what we usually get in an entire water year. And again, water year begins on October 1st. So we've done very well here in our watershed, which translates to Dan not selling as much water. Let's look at temperature because that can also affect things. We are a little bit high on our average temperatures here, and you know what we're having right now has been quite warm. I think we're going to start cooling off again, maybe starting Friday, and it looks like we do have at least one, maybe a couple storms in the forecast for the next 10 days or so. Got ahead of myself. There's the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. We have above average estimates for precipitation over the next 10 days. Also, you can see Northern California also has some potential snow coming in next week. I don't get the feeling that it's a big gigantic storm, but any bit helps to accumulate because we are getting towards the end of our winter period where we tend to accumulate that snow. And temperatures pretty normal for the next 6 to 10 days. But the outlook for the whole rest of the season, so this is taking us through February, March, and April, and that will wrap up the rainy season, the snowy season in California. Looking further out, it does look like they're predicting it to be warmer and drier than average. So just to summarize the water year 2026 to date, we have statewide precipitation really good at 117% of average, but that snowpack is really lagging at 56%. Lake Oroville, which there's Lake Oroville releasing some water out of the spillway because again, it is not just a supply reservoir, but it also manages for flood. So during this time of year, they have to maintain a certain capacity to be able to capture floodwaters to mitigate any downstream impacts. So there's a release going on right there in that photo. Oroville's at 82% full. which is 135% of where it normally is at this time. And all of that is pretty good news. So back in December, the initial state water project Table A allocation was given at 10%. And we always know that they start really low because DWR never wants to go backward. They always want to give you more. So they're very conservative when they give these allocation estimates. And so we did get an increase in Table A allocation on January 29th. We're up to 30% now. And Metropolitan typically breaks even around 30 to 35%. That means that we're not going to be in a deficit in terms of Met. And if it goes up anymore, then we'll start going into surplus and Met will start doing more of its surplus storage and management programming. So this Table A allocation of 30%, this is reflecting those mid-December storms and the very good snowpack or reservoir conditions that we have, but it assumes that we're going to have dry conditions for the rest of the water year. So again, very conservative. And if we do get some more snowpack, there is the potential that this 30% will increase by at least some by the end of the period that they typically use. Like by May or June, we have our final allocation, but in reality, we pretty much know what it's going to be by April. So we're getting close, but there's still time. So hope for some snow.
I think the East Coast has some snow to spare.
Sure, I bet that's what they're saying too. But yeah, some snow, not too much. And then there's our beautiful Lake Bart. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for all the great news
All right.
and bad news for Dan. And us as, as an agency, we need that revenue. Do we have questions? Jackie, Tebow? No. All right, thank you. All right, and up next, I'm gonna call for a 5-minute break. And we'll be back. Yeah, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the break and had time to I don't know, just time for whatever. Okay, up next we have maybe a general council report.
No report tonight, but there is a session.
No report tonight. Do we have board of directors reports, committee meeting reports, any committees in the past weeks?
Nutson.
VCSDA was.
Oh, that's not committee.
That's not committee, sorry.
We have not had any committees since then.
No. Okay. Up next then is director's list of admin code reimbursable meetings. Director Quady, would you like to kick it off?
Okay, January 23rd, I went to the State of the Chamber, Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce, and same day purveyor meeting.
Missing.
On the 29th, the 30th, it was board orientation on the 29th. That was a board orientation and a key performance indicator, the vision of our water future, which will engage a gubernatorial candidate. And then on the 30th was the board meeting, organizational and committee reports, and the California Farm Water Coalition made a presentation. On the 3rd, I went to the Ventura County Special District and tonight's board meeting.
Thank you, Director Quady. Director McMillan.
Yes, on January 22nd, I attended the purveyors meeting. On the 23rd, the Southern California Water Coalition luncheon at the Santa Anita Racetrack. On the 25th, I did CSDA training on Gatsby. On the 26th, I attended Water Policy Forum at the Western and South Coast Plaza. On the 27th, MWD's executive and committee meetings. On the 28th, I attended United Water Conservation's very orderly field tour, and it was very good. The guests asked incredible questions. I hope that we might even consider starting our own. And anyway, also on the same day, Awa's luncheon at the Orchard Room. The 29th, CSDA's webinar, Micro Storytelling. On the 30th, West Ventura County's Business Alliance annual meeting at the Museum of Ventura County. On February 2nd, Legal and Claims Planning meeting. On the 3rd, Oxnard City Council meeting. On February the 4th, the West Ventura County Business Alliance ribbon cutting on the Holiday Inn in Oxnard. And that's a new shuttle service that's going to be going to LAX from Oxnard. February 4th, tonight's board meeting, and then also a claim dispute discussion with legal counsel. Busy.
Director Robert.
Since the last board meeting, there's a Metropolitan Subcommittee on Imported Water and tonight's board meeting.
Since the last board meeting on the 22nd of January, I attended the Aqua Policy Committee Chairs. It's a sort of an orientation. On the 28th, I traveled to Sacramento. 29th, we had our board workshop where we discussed a little bit of what Director Quady mentioned on how Aqua can reach out to these gubernatorial candidates and how we get them to understand water and really be advocates for water before they're governors. That way we can align with the same goals and hopefully get them down the right path on what's needed for California water. On the next day, we had our board meeting where they selected the 3 executive committee members for Aqua, which was Michael, Sergeant Green, and who was the last one?
I think it was
Michael Saunders, Sergeant Green, and Eric Larrabee were the new ones. Unfortunately, we did not get one of those committee members as a Southern California local. I think they're all from up north. We did have Dr. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name.
Anthony Fellow.
Anthony Fellow. We had Anthony Fellow as a nominee, but he didn't quite get the votes. And on the 31st, I traveled back from Sacramento and tonight's board meeting. Thank you, everyone, for those updates. Up next, we have discussion regarding upcoming meetings to be attended by the board. Anything to add?
Could I flag a couple of things? The next board meeting on the 18th, Director McMillan will be remote and Director McCullough will still be on vacation. So hopefully the three of you will all be present here in person to ensure we can have a meeting. Looking a little further out, our May 6th board meeting will conflict with the Aqua Conference. So I'd like to instead have a meeting on April 29th. That's a 5th Wednesday, because that's just how the calendar falls. Would that work for the board?
Is it April the
29th.
Sure.
Yeah. Should be good.
Usually things don't fall on the 5th Wednesday because you can't guarantee there'll be one.
No.
So it's usually a pretty safe date. Okay, then that is what we shall do. Thank you.
Thank you. What's next? Are we gonna have it on the leap years?
We could, just for fun, but not for another couple of years.
Leap year board meetings.
2 years, you gotta wait for that.
Okay, do we have a request for future agenda items?
Director Quady has asked that we place him in nomination for the Aqua JPIA CWIP. Don't ask me what CWIP stand for, because I don't know.
Water Insurance Fund.
Pass the test.
Yeah.
Nominated.
So I would be planning to agendize that for the 18th, and then we also have to seek 3 concurring nominations from other water districts who are in the Aqua JPA program. So I'll be reaching out to some of our friends and neighbors for those.
Surveyors.
I might know one.
Yeah, I bet you do. I don't think we've asked them in the past. We can branch out.
All right. Do you have any board comments?
VCSDA, as yesterday I had a family engagement, I was not able to attend. I can go down the Dr. Quaid, VCSDA?
Yeah. I didn't take any notes, but I enjoyed it.
No, any memorable items?
We already passed the director's list of code reversal meetings. We're at just board comments now.
Yeah, I know. That's my comment. I forgot to bring that up.
Oh, all right. So going back to item 2, C2, would anybody like to bring up anything else?
I can go down the agenda.
It was a good and interesting meeting. There was a good tour and a good presentation. I think that covers the key elements. We got to see where they wash the buses and maintain the buses and take the fare money.
I was glad to see it because I knew nothing about that sector. I mean, it's really quite an eye opener for me.
Yeah, it was a really interesting tour.
Very cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Up next, we have informational items. Does everybody look at the press release?
Yes, as you can see, the legislative session is in full swing. So Charlotte and Jen Vasquez have been very busy preparing letters and submitting them and signing on to coalition letters consistent with the legislative policy principles the board previously adopted. So expect to see more of this in incoming agendas.
All right. Up next, we have the closed session. With that, we are now closing open session and opening. All right, closing closed session and reopening the open session.
And the board received an update and no action was taken for the closed session item.
Thank you, council. We are adjourned.
Have a good